Oh, hey gang, what's up? Well, I finally made it into my apartment. Uh, what a ride it was. I lasted 5 complete days and nights without a roof over my head, sleeping in the parks, not sleeping much, sleeping in coffee shops, being treated more and more disgracefully as time went on, as my body odor increased, as my beard increased, and as I looked more and more shabby, and as my sneakers began to disintegrate into absolutely nothing. Uh, it's really amazing that I'm in the same area really that I lasted. By the way, after that 5 days, what happened was I found a shelter that was great. Actually, it gave me food, gave me a place to sleep. There was about 200 guys there between ages of probably about 30 and about 60. Um, some of them in worse shape than others. No one looked that much worse than I was. It seemed like a lot of people were in a similar situation. They just ended up with nothing for some reason. I didn't see a lot of hardcore drug addicts. I recognized a couple of faces from previous uh, downtown or nightclubs or maybe even rehab sessions, or who knows, being picked up by the cops and he was in the pen with me, whatever. I saw a bunch of guys that I knew from the past who I hadn't seen for years, but who always seemed to pop up in these locations. And these guys, I'm looking at them and I'm watching them and I'm realizing they're just like me. They were from abused households. Their fathers were not there for them. They're angry. A lot of them are really intelligent, highly articulate, and just stuck, I suppose. Or not really stuck. A lot of them actually are resigned. I didn't think it was so bad. And once I found the shelter, I said, well, if I had to live with the shelter every day of my life for the rest of my life, it wouldn't be nearly as bad as living with my narcissistic parents. I mean, at least there were 200 good guys around. They fed us decently well. Um, it was free. Um, some guys I think were there for close to a year by now. I'm sure after a while you just want your own place, but it's a nice thing to have a socialist regime, so to speak, because otherwise I would have been probably back with my narcissist parents at some point. Because after 5 6 days, I was ready to just give in. But just one day at the shelter, I came out, and guess what? The next night, I didn't want to go back to the shelter, and I didn't. I stayed out again, and I didn't sleep. And I'll tell you something. It really increased my feeling of being a psychopath. I had a lot less empathy for people. I was angry, but I was confident. I would have fought with anyone, guys 3 times my size, because I had nothing to lose. And the idea of going into a prison cell was actually not so bad, considering some nights were raining outside and it was cold and I was alone. Um, so once you've been through the ringer a few times in your life, perspective changes on a lot of things. And when I was outside on the fifth night or fourth night, I was walking around like looking for trouble, just looking for something, because I got tired of going from park to park. Um, I met some people. I met some really interesting, freaky people. I met a narcissistic she-male who reminded me too much of my ex-girlfriend. That was an interesting few hours. I met one guy who was living he called himself a boondocker, and he gave up the regular life about a year and a half ago, which he had a good business until the internet destroyed his business. And I was living in his van, and he said he paid $1,500, never pays rent, drives from one city to the other depending on what time of the year it is. He's in Florida, right in front of the ocean. He showed me the photos all summer long. So, sorry, all winter long. He's winter here in Canada. He goes to Florida. Pictures are beautiful. No rent. So, whatever he has, whatever he makes, it's goes into living, and that was something that was kind of interesting. Being out there, I met a lot of homeless people. Wow. I never realized how many people I see every day do not have a place to sleep, or they're sleeping in the shelters. They're sleeping, well, basically it's the shelters and nowhere. And now I know how to recognize them by how they look, how they carry themselves, how their clothes look, where you see them, how often you see them, how they look at you. who their friends are, and in the end of the day, they're usually the nicest people. Ironically, they may look a little bit scary, some of them, especially the younger ones, they look a bit punk, but in the end of the day, the homeless are more or less the nicest people, except for the youngest, teenagers who are just punks, but 20 and above, they've been through the hard stuff. And I mean, that guy who I told you, the boondocker, I was lying on the grass. I was in my jacket like this, probably on it was day 7. I ended up doing, by the way, 5 days outside, 1 day in the shelter, 1 day outside. Then I went back to the shelter, and then I did 1 day outside, and then I finally got my place. And in the shelter, you're only allowed overnight, so the rest of the day, you're left wandering and just looking for things to do, and it's a lot of boredom. Let me tell you, a lot of anxiety was building. I wanted to do things. I have ideas, and I had, and it's just going crazy. So here's my place. I'll show you. It's really small, but it's really kind of cute. I hope my narcissists don't see it because, there it is. And isn't it cute? Woo! I even have a nice view. And I think that's basically the computer and where all the damage will be done. And it's really cheap, and I can afford it easily and have money left over, and that's if everything works out all right. And I have a lot of projects. That's just my core money that I'm getting. That's a long story. I'll get to that actually. Believe it or not, I don't know. Anyways, I made it in. Anyone who was watching my stories, I have a few videos I'm going to upload from when I was lying in one of the parks. One night I took about 4 or 5 videos. I may have taken another video or 2. I'm going to upload those. You've probably already seen them because I'm going to upload this last. But here it is. I'm in my place, narcissistically chased out of my last apartment by my freaking parents, who I now understand exactly why they did it. In a nutshell, to encapsulate it, my parents went to Florida. They were the first ones to leave to Florida, right? They were high on a hog. They were narcissists. They were so proud. They bought a huge white castle, apparently. I never went, but my brother said, "Oh my God, it's immense. It's way too big for them. It's outlandish," which I'm not surprised. And they weren't really making much money. Like I said, they inherited the money from their parents, and they didn't treat my brother and I very generously, so they had all of it to themselves. Anyhow, my father gets arrested for importing undersized lobster from Nicaragua, because that's what he was doing for a business. At that point, they lost everything. They lost citizenship. They lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. They lost their White Castle. They come back to the city. And instead of being honest and saying, my husband messed up, and my father's saying, "Oh my God, I screwed up," they scapegoated me. That was the whole thing that's been going on since, the past 16 years, behind my back. Up to that point, they were always narcissists. They were never supportive. But I don't think they ever sabotaged me necessarily on purpose until that. So then what they did is they came back and they told everyone in the family, we had to come back because our son was not doing well and we needed to support him. This is parents who left. The only parents I know who left their kids before either of them were married just got up and went. And they did it, why? To prove, right? To prove that they could, that they were great. And they weren't. They had no business. My father has a one-man show that just doesn't make any money. He couldn't afford to pay me when he hired me after 2 weeks. He couldn't afford to keep my cousin on when he hired him for more than a summer. There's nothing there. They're spending the inheritance. They've spent the inheritance to keep up a lavish lifestyle, to keep up an image. And when it all came crashing down in Florida, they scapegoated me. They said I had psychological problems and was having money issues and they needed to support me, when in fact I was doing fine. But they came back and started to undermine me by gaining my trust, leading me places, playing the takeaway game, until my brother died when they played the takeaway game on him for some reason with money for his fertility treatments, and then he had a heart attack from being devastated. And at that point, I realized my parents had no empathy when they further sabotaged me by calling my dying aunt, who was a multimillionaire, and telling her not to give me the $30,000 investment she was ready to sign off on. they actually did that behind my back so that I wouldn't get the money and that I wouldn't thrive. Because if I thrive, when they see their friends and their friends say, "Hey, let's go to the Caribbean together," my parents can't afford it because they don't make any money because they've lost it all. Well, they can say, "Oh, my son needs us." That's why they were trying to get me to move back to their area, in their house, whatever. That's why they made me quit my job. They all played this whole money game with my brother's inheritance. Now that he's deceased, I'm gonna get it all. And then I worked for a year. Then the money wasn't there, and I burnt out. And then I got traumatized, and they fed my friend a little bit of money at a time, so I would practically starve to death, which I basically starved to death. And then they got me evicted. And then when they got me evicted, what do they say? "We'll take care of you if you move in with us." Yeah, because they need me. They need me as a scapegoat so they can say, "Oh, our son had I never had any problems. I was always a senior computer programmer. I can develop anything on the web or on your mobile phone you desire. I have developed everything from video conferencing applications to e-commerce using JavaScript, jQuery, PHP, MySQL, LAMP. I mean, I can do it all. I've been doing it since I'm 13 years old. My parents needed a scapegoat, and it's just sick what they did to me. I could have been a lot more successful. I mean, I had a great application that was in the realm of a WhatsApp, and it was before WhatsApp was released, and that's what I needed the $30,000 for. And maybe it wouldn't have been, as big as that. Maybe it wouldn't have worked. But I mean, my parents actually told my investor, "Don't do it." My mother probably said, "Don't do it. We'll take care of it. We'll give him more money." As if she has it. My mother's a liar. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And my brother, before he died, he called me the night before, screaming that exactly. He said, "Our mother is a liar. She's no damn good. I hate her. She's a loser." And he was furious. And that's why he had the heart attack. And I know what it was. She did exactly to him the same thing. She told him that if he had more fertility treatments with his wife, and gave her a grandchild, then she would pay half. Or maybe she would pay all, but I think it's probably half. That's the way she works. And when it didn't work out for my brother, and he'd gone through another year of trauma, of seeing if 2 fetuses develop, and then not form whatever the trauma was. My friends have gone through it, and it's always devastating. They tell me they almost killed themselves. Well, my mother says, "I never said that." She gaslights him. "Oh, I only told you if it worked out, or I didn't." So my brother is left at that point with $40,000 in debt, without a child, looking at adopting, which is another huge expense and problem. And my mother is not only denying it, causing him stress from the gaslighting itself, but invalidating his emotions. Like it's nothing that he lost 2 fetuses, that he should just go on and adopt and everything should be the same and just wake up tomorrow and have a good day. After his whole life, he wanted to have kids. Adopting, nothing's wrong with it. But give the kid some compassion. My brother died 2 days later after my mother totally discarded him and totally gaslighted him over the money. And I know exactly. That's why I'm here. I'm here because my mother needs a scapegoat from her husband's failure. And her husband is a failure because he is a psychopath. My father is not as sick as my mother. He's not inherently as evil. He's just a psychopath. He's an asshole. But he doesn't hide it. He's always been an asshole. He beat me, but he didn't gaslight me the same way like my mother plays games, I mean, she's been playing me for 15 years, probably my whole life. She told me to get rid of, I did so much for my mother. Got rid of one girlfriend, didn't do this, moved to Toronto to make her happy, to be with my brother so that she didn't have to worry about me. I mean, all this ridiculous stuff. And at the end of the day, what do I get? Sabotage. I mean, so my parents are finished. They have to understand, I hope they understand that I am supremely happy. I can do a lot of stuff. I just do not ever want to have to see them again. They have lost me as a son. They have lost my brother to the ground as a son. They had a nerve to even threaten that they were going to cut off of me if I wasn't more polite with them. As if I miss them, I miss my brother. I don't miss them. They've never been nice. My brother and I were best friends. To keep it under 15 minutes, folks. Thanks for your support very much. It would have been a lot worse without your support. I mean, I was in a hotel for 22 days before. It was a crack hotel. The landlord drove me crazy. It was stressful from morning till night because it's $55 a day. Just too much to handle. I had luggage, so I couldn't go homeless and then not go homeless. My luggage, I put storage, still cost me another $100. It's really expensive to be homeless in a way if you have stuff. because you're always dealing with putting things in. It was tough. It was tough. It was so tough. And to think that my parents think that I will ever return to them as a son after what I just went through was basically 1 year of major trauma, 1 year of recovery that was being flying monkeyed by my best friend, who I also cut off for life. Never again. And him, I knew he was my best friend since I've been very young. I've known him, I grew up with him, but he's finished. Him and my mother were in cahoots for a year, the second year. And then this past probably 6 months has been getting evicted, going through all the eviction process, the tribunals. I went to get all my medical tests. I did all kinds of research. I did so much work getting this apartment that I couldn't get, living outside, renting the hotel, moving my stuff, all my stuff on my back twice. And my parents think I'm just going to like forgive and forget. I mean, if they ever see this, you know, whoever sees this on their behalf, the answer is forget it. Forget it. I would have to be truly disturbed to accept them back in my life after everything they've done to me and to my brother, and everything they haven't done for me and for my brother. And that's it. Everyone else, though, you've been great, and the world's been great. I had a lot of people support me. I had a lot of people outside in the park help me, and I met a lot of great people along the way. And there's more great people than there are bad people. At least in my city and in my world, I find it's there's definitely a majority of good folks. So that's a good thing, I guess. Let's keep it up. I'm now gonna go prepare some other videos because I have some serious stuff to talk about. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. All right, it's good to be back in a place. I have to say, I felt a little bit like a traitor to the homeless when I woke up today. I got in like yesterday, and when I woke up and I felt so clean and everything, I walked outside and I didn't feel skittery and jittery. I kind of felt like a traitor to the people who I'd felt such brotherly and sisterly love towards all around me, who basically lived in the same apartment as me, which was the city streets. It's really it's like living in the jungle, right in the city. Like, here I am in the city. As soon as I lose my apartment, well, then I'm instantaneously in the jungle, and we never see it until we're there.